Now, fish has been getting a lot of undue good attention in recent years. It's really, I mean, fish is, of all of the meats, this is the one that is going to have the quickest adverse impact in your life. Like if you're eating chicken or pigs or cattle, they're linked to heart disease, they're linked to cancer, they're linked to diabetes. Those are long-term problems. Fish consumption is linked to almost immediate decreased cognitive function. And we have all of the studies about this on the, again, goveg.com website in the health section. People who eat fish just twice a week have a measurable decrease in their ability to concentrate, which is an EPA study. The Wall Street Journal 2 years ago did a front page piece about this kid who was eating 1 can of tuna a day. He was an athlete. He ended up going from being on the football team and being in gifted and talented courses to being in remedial classes and unable to catch a ball because of his fish consumption, the mercury poisoning. You know, none of us would go out to the Chesapeake Bay and take a glass and put the glass into the water and drink whatever came out, right? Would anybody take that challenge? No, of course not. But we're getting all of that. We're getting the lead, we're getting the mercury, we're getting all of the filth in that water concentrated in the animal's flesh. None of that stuff is water soluble. So if you're eating fish flesh, you're rolling the dice on the cleanliness of the water that the fish came out of. There isn't really very much clean water left. And in fact, a lot of people have done scientific studies of people who eat fish. There's a Dr. Jane Hightower on the West Coast, and she found more and more of her patients, once the eat fish twice a week stuff, the sort of drumbeat started building, more and more of her patients were coming in, and they were talking about suffering vertigo and dizziness and forgetfulness, and she couldn't figure out what the problem was, and she finally isolated it to the fact that they were eating fish twice a week. The one thing fish does have that we do need is the omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. You can get it in flax, you can get it in walnuts, you can get it in green leafy vegetables, and you won't get the heavy metals and all of the other filth that comes in fish. If you have any relatives or anybody else who is pregnant or who has a small child who is eating fish, this is especially dangerous. Ample scientific evidence, zero countervailing science to indicate that pregnant women who eat fish have children who are less smart. There's a decrease in their kids' abilities and an increased likely that their kid will have motor problems when they're born. And again, we have all of the science. It's all peer-reviewed. It's all on the goveg.com website, in that case in the health section. So 3 independent reasons so far for adopting a vegan diet. If we care about the environment, we don't have to care about anything else. If we care about the environment, a vegan diet. If we care about global poverty or the suffering of domestic workers, a vegan diet. If we care about our health, a vegan diet. But of course, that's not the reason most of you are here. That's not the reason I'm here. I break the animal protection discussion into animal rights and animal welfare. And PETA, of course, is an animal rights organization. The animal rights, there's the science. So we have Charles Darwin, Carl Sagan, and Richard Dawkins. Then there's the philosophy. So we have Jeremy Bentham, Albert Einstein, and Alice Walker talking about animal rights philosophy. The philosophy builds on the science. It goes all the way back to Charles Darwin, who taught us that other animals are more similar to us than they are dissimilar to us. They're made of flesh and blood and bone, just like we are. They have the same 5 physiological senses that we do, and they have the same range of emotions. A lot of Cartesian scientists denied that third aspect from Darwin. But based on his observation, as well as all the actual scientific observation since, the animals do indeed have the same range of emotions that human beings do. Carl Sagan, another scientist, advisor to Cornell's animal rights group, said, how intelligent does an animal have to be before killing her constitutes murder? And Richard Dawkins, the foremost Darwin scholar currently living, calls other animals our conscience. Calls other animals our cousins, and talks about speciesist arrogance to say that there is something about human beings, some line that distinguishes us from other species. Then the philosophers take it from there, and they point out that just as in society we held slaves for so long, we denied women the right to vote for so long, for the vast majority of human history in both cases, we had these lines that we drew. And we said, white property males over the age of 21 are above the line, and everybody else is below the line. The scientists are challenging that line and saying that the line that we drew by race, or the line that we drew by gender, or the line that we draw by species, either way, it's a line that is scientifically indefensible. Jeremy Bentham said, the question we should ask when asking if we're going to grant a right to be free from pain and suffering to someone is, what is that being's capacity to feel pain? What is that being's capacity to suffer? So if I'm saying, you have a right to be free from pain and suffering, we don't say, how intelligent are you? We don't say, how fast can you run? We don't say, do you have opposable thumbs, or can you do calculus? We say, what is your capacity to feel pain? What is your capacity to suffer? All the way back to Jeremy Bentham. Einstein, at the dawn of the nuclear age, said we have to challenge ourselves as a species to widen our circle of compassion. Our circle of compassion, by narrowing itself to human beings, is too small. And our challenge as a species, as we evolve in our moral understanding, is to extend that understanding, that moral consideration, beyond human beings, and to give it to all of humanity. And then Alice Walker, she wrote the introduction to a book called The Dreaded Comparison by a woman named Marjorie Spiegel. The Dreaded Comparison looks at the slave trade from the 16th to the 19th centuries and compares it to what we're doing to other animals today. And Alice Walker, in the introduction, she says, the animals of this world were not made for human purposes any more than black people were created for white people, or women were created for men. In other words, there is no more justification for inflicting pain on another species than there is for inflicting pain on another gender, or another age, or another nationality, or anything else, where the only morally coherent way of having this discussion is to say, do they suffer, do they feel pain? And what Physiology or Biology 101 tells us is that it doesn't matter your species. At the very least, mammals, birds, and fish have the exact same capacity for pain and suffering.